When Adam lost his job at the textile plant, he thought it was just another bump in the road. After all, people lost jobs every day. But weeks turned to months and the bump became a crater. He applied everywhere. Gas stations, cleaning services, even night shifts in warehouses. Nothing stuck. No callbacks. No interviews. His savings dwindled fast. The fridge echoed with emptiness, and the landlord's voice grew more aggressive with each knock. Adam wasn't lazy. He had worked since he was 16, but something in the world had shifted, and he wasn't part of it anymore. He was a ghost in the system, an invisible man lost in a city that moved too fast and cared too little. With every rejection email, something inside him dried up. His pride first, then his hope. One night, while scrolling through online forums in a haze of hunger and desperation, he stumbled upon a post. It was buried in the dark corners of the web, written in a tone both clinical and cold. Seeking a calm individual for observational work. No experience required. Must be discreet. High pay. Immediate start. Contact only if serious. The link didn't lead to a company website or application form. It was just a phone number. No name, no details. Just the eerie simplicity of something that either promised salvation or spelled a trap. But Adam had nothing left to lose. The voice that answered was deep and controlled. Male. Polite. "Can you be at St. Mary's Hospital tomorrow? 8 a.m. sharp," the voice asked. No questions about experience, no paperwork, just a time and a place. St. Mary's was a quiet, aging hospital on the edge of the city. Adam arrived early, wearing the only suit he hadn't sold. Gray, 2 sizes too large now, thanks to the weight he'd lost. A nurse pointed him toward the basement wing. Everything felt off. There were no signs, no staff walking around. Just a hallway that seemed to grow colder the deeper he went. At the end of the hall was a door marked Unit 9C, not on any public directory. He knocked. The same voice from the phone told him to come in. Inside was a sterile room with a single chair facing a large observation window. Behind the glass was a hospital room, dimly lit. A patient lay in bed, hooked up to machines, unmoving. The man in the bed looked already dead, except for the faint rising and falling of his chest. Beside him sat a priest. The voice told Adam, "You just sit and watch. That's all. We notify you when your shift ends. Payment is daily. No questions asked." Adam blinked. "Watch what?" "You watch them die," the voice replied flatly. He wanted to leave, but the voice was calm, almost hypnotic. And then came the envelope, thick, sealed, full of cash. A week's worth of pay for 1 8-hour shift. In that moment, morality faded behind necessity. He sat down. The first day I walked into the building, I expected something bleak. Maybe a medical facility, a government compound, or some high-tech lab with white walls and faceless employees. But what I saw instead was a theater. A literal theater. Velvet curtains, polished floors, gilded ceiling. Rows of antique red chairs face a massive stage illuminated by soft, warm lights. There was no audience, just me. I was guided by a woman in a gray suit who said nothing except, "Take a seat. Show starts in 5. I sat in the center, as instructed, confused and curious. The entire place smelled of perfume and old wood, like it hadn't been used in years but still remembered what it once was. My heart pounded. Was this a prank? An experimental performance? Some elite billionaire's art fetish? The lights dimmed. A slow hum came through hidden speakers. Not music, more like breathing. Then the stage curtain opened. A man stood alone, tied to a chair. He was maybe 50, with hollow cheeks and eyes that had already surrendered to something I couldn't name. No makeup, no costume, no fanfare. Just raw, living fear. Then something truly disturbing happened. Nothing. No act, no monologue, no music. Just silence. I leaned forward, unsure what I was witnessing. That's when the stage lights changed, from warm amber to a sterile white glow. And I realized the man wasn't acting. He was dying. I don't know how. There was no gunshot, no screaming. Just a slow collapse, like his life was being drained right in front of me by invisible hands. I couldn't move. When he finally slumped, lifeless, The curtain closed. A minute later, the woman in the gray suit returned and handed me an envelope. "Payment for today," she said, as calm as if she were handing me a receipt for coffee. Inside, $800 in crisp bills. I said nothing. She said nothing. I left. Outside, the sun was still shining. People were walking their dogs. A couple was arguing over gelato. Life continued, completely oblivious to what I had just seen. That night, I didn't sleep. I told myself it must have been performance art, extreme, shocking, method acting insanity. But deep inside, I knew what I saw wasn't theater. It was death, pure and deliberate, and someone had paid me to watch it. The next morning I got a text. Showtime at 2 p.m. Same place. Double pay. I hesitated. I really did. But I went, and the next show was worse. This time, a woman, young, trembling. She begged, she screamed, she tried to run. There were no guards, no violence. Just her, on that stage, unraveling in front of my eyes until she couldn't scream anymore. And then silence. Another envelope. This time, $1,600. I took it, and I came back again, and again. I told myself I was just an observer, a non-participant, a paid witness to something I couldn't control. But the truth? Every time I sat in that theater, a part of me died too, because no one else ever watched the shows, just me. And for the first 2 weeks, nothing out of the ordinary happened. The job was simple, mechanical, almost meditative. Sit, watch, record. The stillness of the hospital corridors became a familiar comfort. Murad, isolated in his glass box, began to memorize the daily routines. Nurses doing rounds, janitors mopping floors, the occasional chatter of families in waiting rooms. But every day, at exactly 3:17 p.m., a man in a gray suit passed through the west corridor on the 3rd floor. Always the same corridor. Always the same time. Murad noticed him first by chance, then began to anticipate his arrival. The man never looked up at the cameras. He walked briskly, always with a black leather briefcase in hand, never stopping or speaking to anyone. There were no patient visits listed for him, and no staff member matched his face. Murad checked. He rewound the footage multiple times, frame by frame. The man appeared on camera for less than 10 seconds, then vanished out of frame toward the ICU. Curious, Murad flagged the footage and brought it to his supervisor. The man barely glanced at the screen. "It's probably a doctor," he shrugged. "Don't overthink it, just do your hours." But it bothered Murad. Hospitals had security procedures, entry logs, name badges. This man had none. The next day, Murad watched the West Corridor camera obsessively, waiting. And again, at exactly 3:17 p.m., the man appeared. Same suit, same case, same direction. But this time, as he passed under the flickering hallway light, his face tilted ever so slightly toward the camera. It was expressionless, cold. His eyes didn't blink. Murad felt a chill run down his spine. He began logging each of the man's appearances, tracking the precise time and date. Over 11 consecutive days, the man showed up without fail. On the 12th day, something changed. The man entered at the same time, but this time, he stopped, right in front of the camera. He looked directly into it, and smiled. It wasn't a smile of warmth or recognition. It was something else. Calculated, eerie, like someone smiling at a locked door they're about to open. Murad's hands trembled as he paused the footage. He zoomed in on the face. The eyes were too dark. The smile was too controlled. And in the reflection of the briefcase, he swore he saw something impossible. Another hand reaching out from inside it. He didn't report this to anyone. Not yet. He needed more. That night, he stayed past his shift, watching every camera angle that led to or from the ICU. What he discovered broke his sense of reality. Each time the man in gray passed by, someone in the ICU died within minutes. Cardiac arrests, sudden seizure. The routine had settled into an eerie rhythm. Each day, the clock struck the same hours. The same corridors echoed with quiet footsteps, and the faces on the monitors became painfully familiar. But beneath the surface of this grim ritual lurked questions Adam dared not voice aloud. His days blurred into nights as he sat in the sterile observation room, watching lives slip away like sand through fingers. No one spoke to him about the man in the gray suit, the silent figure who seemed to haunt the hospital's corridors without explanation. Yet, Adam sensed that the presence was more than coincidence. It was a sign, a warning. One afternoon, as the autumn wind rattled the hospital windows, Adam noticed a flicker on one of the security cameras. The grainy footage revealed the man in the gray suit standing motionless in a dim hallway. But this time his figure seemed distorted, as if stretched by a shadowy force. The briefcase he always carried appeared heavier, almost alive, pulsating with an unnatural energy. That night, the boundary between reality and nightmare began to blur. Adam dreamed of the man in the suit, standing at the edge of a vast, dark theater. The stage was empty except for a single chair, draped in a tattered black cloth. From the shadows emerged a whispering crowd, their faces hidden, voices echoing with a chilling refrain. The watcher becomes the watched. Adam awoke with a start, sweat soaking his sheets. The echo of the dream lingered, gnawing at his sanity. The next day, he confronted a nurse about the strange figure. She hesitated before speaking, her eyes clouded with fear. "They say he's not part of this world," she whispered. "He's a collector, an observer of endings. Some believe he's waiting for the final curtain to fall, on all of us." Adam wanted to dismiss it as superstition, but a growing dread rooted deep in his chest. As days passed, the deaths he observed felt less like isolated events and more like chapters in a dark play, scripted by an unseen hand. The man in the gray suit appeared more frequently, often lingering near the bedsides of those moments before their last breath. Adam began to record everything meticulously: the time, the faces, the presence of the gray suit. Each entry etched a pattern that hinted at something far more sinister than he could comprehend. Then came the night of the final act. Adam was called to the theater, the one place that never seemed to close. The man in the gray suit awaited him backstage, the briefcase now resting ominously on a small table. Without a word, the man opened it, revealing a single antique pocket watch, its hands spinning backward in a slow, hypnotic dance. "You belong here now," the man said, voice low and final. Adam felt the weight of inevitability crash down on him. The watcher was becoming the watched, and the curtain was falling fast. After that night, nothing was the same. Adam woke with a heavy weight pressing down on his chest, like an unseen hand squeezing the life out of him. The antique pocket watch haunted his dreams, ticking backwards relentlessly, as if counting down to something unavoidable. He tried to shrug it off, tell himself it was just stress. But deep inside, he knew better. His shifts became darker, less about observation and more about survival. The hospital corridors no longer felt like a workplace. They had become a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. Every glance over his shoulder revealed nothing, yet the feeling of being watched clawed at his nerves. The man in the gray suit was nowhere to be seen, but his presence lingered like a ghost. Adam's notebook, once a tool for detachment, has now become a testament to his unraveling mind. He documented faces, times, and strange occurrences. Lights flickering inexplicably, monitors beeping without cause, patients murmuring words in languages he couldn't understand. The hospital itself seemed alive, a breathing entity feeding off the energy of life and death. One night, during a particularly long shift, Adam found himself drawn to the west corridor, the one the gray-suited man had always walked. As he stood there, a cold breeze brushed past him, carrying a faint scent of smoke and old paper. Suddenly, the lights dimmed, and the faint sound of a clock ticking filled the air, growing louder with every heartbeat. Frozen in place, Adam watched as a shadow emerged at the corridor's end, a figure indistinct and flickering like static on a broken screen. The figure raised a hand, pointing directly at him. The ticking accelerated, becoming a deafening roar in his ears. Then silence. The lights snapped back on. The figure was gone. Adam's knees buckled. The pocket watch from the briefcase sat in his mind like a curse. He realized that watching death was no longer passive. It was an invitation. The theater, the gray suit, the endless cycle. They were pulling him deeper into a game with no escape. Days later, Adam received an unmarked envelope slid under his door. Inside was a single card with 3 words: "Your time's up." Panic surged through him. He tried to leave, to quit, but the hospital doors seemed to twist and stretch, trapping him inside. The world outside faded as the theater's grip tightened. His reflection in every glass surface seemed older, gaunt, eyes hollow. He was no longer just a witness to death. He was becoming part of it. And then came the moment he dreaded most, when the watcher becomes the watched. The line between reality and nightmare blurred completely that night. Adam sat alone in the theater's empty auditorium, the flickering light of a lone candle casting monstrous shadows on the walls. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the faint ticking of the antique pocket watch that had mysteriously appeared on the small table in front of him. He didn't remember how he got there. One moment he was at home, desperate to escape the suffocating grip of his job. And the next, he was back inside that place. The theater, the hospital, the labyrinth of death. The curtains slowly parted, revealing a single figure in the spotlight. It was him. Older, thinner, eyes sunken deep into his skull. The audience was gone, replaced by dark, empty seats, and yet he felt their eyes burning into his skin. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Instead, the watch ticked louder, faster, echoing inside his head. The man in the gray suit appeared beside him, silent and unmoving, his cold gaze piercing. "You've been watching long enough," the man said, voice void of emotion. "Now it's time to perform." Adam's heart hammered. He realized the truth. The watchers are always destined to become the watched. There was no escape from this theater of death. His fate was sealed the moment he took the job. The chair beneath him turned cold and hard. The lights dimmed until the only illumination was the watch's face, spinning backward, mocking the flow of time. And then, the darkness swallowed him whole. When Adam awoke, he was no longer in control. His body was a puppet, his mind a stage for the final act. The theater had claimed him, and the audience was waiting. Because in this place, no one leaves the show alive. By the way, if you're into strange and unbelievable true stories like this one, make sure to subscribe. We drop a new story every single day, and trust me, they only get wilder from here. Now, back to it. Adam's reality began to fracture. The days bled into nights, memories twisted into shadows, and the once familiar world morphed into a stage haunted by silent spectators. He no longer knew where he ended and the theater began. Everywhere he turned, he felt eyes piercing through him, unseen but unbearable. The walls whispered secrets he couldn't decipher, and the flickering lights played cruel tricks, casting his own shadow as something monstrous. His reflection in mirrors was no longer his own. Instead, it showed a hollow shell, a man trapped between life and death, a prisoner of the role he never auditioned for. In the theater's vast, empty auditorium, he became both actor and audience. The crowd of faceless watchers returned night after night, their applause hollow and chilling. They were the lost souls, those who had once been watchers like him, now trapped forever in the dark seats. Adam realized the truth too late. His job wasn't just to watch death, it was to join its endless cycle. The man in the gray suit was no mere observer. He was the gatekeeper, the one who bound souls to the eternal performance. With every passing moment, Adam felt his own life slipping away, replaced by the weight of countless stories he had witnessed but never told. The final act was approaching, and the curtain was closing fast. Adam's days had turned into endless loops, each one blending into the next like a nightmare on repeat. The hospital, the theater, the silent audience, they were no longer places or people, but parts of a cage tightening around him. Every breath he took felt borrowed, every step heavier than the last. He tried to break free. He searched for exits, doors that might lead him back to the life he once knew, but the corridors twisted and changed. The halls led only to more darkness, more empty seats, more shadows waiting in the wings. The man in the gray suit appeared less frequently now, but when he did, it was always with that same cold, unreadable smile. No words, no explanations. Just the watch, the relentless ticking reminding Adam that his time was slipping away. One night, in the cold silence before dawn, Adam found himself standing on the stage. The spotlight burned bright overhead, blinding. The empty seats stretched endlessly before him, filled with invisible faces watching, waiting. He realized then the cruel truth. He was no longer a spectator. He was the star of the show, and the final act was his. As the ticking reached a deafening crescendo, Adam felt the darkness close in, swallowing his screams. The theater held him tight, a prisoner to the eternal play where death was both audience and performer. And in the silence that followed, a new watcher was born. Adam woke in a cold sweat, gasping for breath. The theater was silent around him, but the weight of countless eyes pressed down like a suffocating fog. His reflection in the darkened window was gaunt, eyes hollow, almost like a stranger's face staring back at him. He stumbled through the backstage corridors, walls narrowing, whispers curling like smoke around him. The man in the gray suit appeared one last time, standing under the dim glow of a flickering exit sign. Without a word, he handed Adam the pocket watch, the same one that had haunted his dreams, and slowly vanished into the shadows. Adam's fingers closed tightly around the watch. The ticking filled his ears, relentless and hypnotic. He understood now. This was no ordinary job. It was a transfer of power, a passing of the mantle. The watcher must become the watched. The observer must become the prisoner. His fate was sealed the moment he accepted the job. The theater doors opened once more, beckoning the next lost soul. And Adam, now the keeper of the watch, waited in the shadows. Days turned into weeks, but for Adam, time lost all meaning. He became the silent sentinel of the theater, the man in the gray suit's shadow. His eyes, once full of life, now scanned the rows of empty seats, forever waiting for the next visitor. The theater was no longer just a place. It was a prison, a purgatory for souls trapped between life and death. Adam watched as new watchers arrived, wide-eyed and trembling, unaware of the fate that awaited them. He observed them with a hollow gaze, knowing that soon they too would be consumed by the endless performance. Each new watcher was drawn into the cruel ritual, forced to witness horrors that no human mind should endure. But Adam was powerless. The watch ticked in his hand, a constant reminder of his curse. He wanted to warn them, to break the cycle. But the theater's walls whispered secrets only he could hear, a dark symphony of despair and inevitability. And so, the show went on. Because in this theater, death was both the playwright and the audience, and the cycle would never end. Years had passed, or maybe just moments. Time was a cruel illusion in the theater where Adam was trapped. The weight of the pocket watch had become part of him, its ticking a heartbeat he could no longer silence. From the shadows, Adam watched as countless souls came and went, each one swallowed by the darkness, each one playing their part in the eternal tragedy. He had long stopped hoping for escape, understanding that this was his fate, a prisoner and a warden of death's cruel theater. One night, alone on the empty stage, Adam whispered to the void, "Is there no end? No light beyond this darkness?" The silence answered back, cold and unforgiving. But somewhere, deep within the endless blackness, a faint glimmer appeared. A single flicker of light. It was fragile and fleeting, like the last breath of a dying star. And for the first time since the beginning, Adam felt something stir inside him. A spark of defiance. Because even in the darkest theater, where death was both actor and audience, the human spirit could still fight to rewrite the final act. The question was whether Adam would find the strength to break the cycle, or become yet another ghost in the endless audience. But something about this story doesn't feel finished. What do you think happened? Leave your theory in the comments. And if this story gave you chills, wait until tomorrow. Because every single day, we uncover real stories darker than fiction. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. for more.